Viva Engage versus Microsoft Teams. When should you use each product? Well, in this video, I'm going to answer that exact question by starting off by giving you an overview of each of the products. Then I'm going to talk a bit about the key comparisons of each of the products, and then finishing off with when you should use them under different circumstances. So starting off with Microsoft Teams. Teams is known for three core feature areas. The first is real-time communication as well as collaboration. Microsoft Teams is a central hub for chatting, video conferencing, file sharing, and collaboration within inside of an organization. It's best for facilitating seamless communication between team members through channels and direct messages. I'm going to take a look at that in a second. But it's also known for project management. So you can use Teams to integrate with Microsoft 365 apps such as SharePoint, Planner, and OneDrive, allowing users to manage projects, collaborate on documents in real time, and track tasks all in one place. You can also use Teams for virtual meetings and webinars. So it provides a robust video conferencing capabilities. Teams excels in hosting meetings, webinars, and virtual events, making it ideal for remote work and geographically distributed teams. So let's jump in and take a little look at Microsoft Teams. Now this is what it looks like inside of the desktop app. But you can also access it through a mobile phone for the Teams app, and you can also get access to it through a web browser as well. Now, amongst many other features of Teams, so above Viva Engage, Teams has things like one-to-one chat messages. You can have your calendar, as in your Outlook calendar, pull through, as well as calls and pulling through personal files from your OneDrive. And Teams is almost kind of one-stop shop. So much so that Teams can actually embed Viva Engage inside of Teams. So we'll come on to talk about that a little bit later on. However, I'm most interested in talking about the actual Teams functionality and comparing that against Viva Engage. Now, Microsoft Teams, so individual teams, are essentially groups of people that are working together on something. So you can see here, I'm a member of multiple different teams, and at the moment they're all expanded, but I'm just going to shorten these down to show you the different types of teams I've got. So we've got a customers team. So here at Valto, basically everything that goes on with our customers. We have conversational threads that go on about our customers and the projects that we're working on. Sales and marketing is something that I'm part of. And again, that's a department level thing. So because I'm part of the marketing department, I'm part of that specific team. Also, I'm part of the management team, so I'm also part of the Valto management team. There's also a Valto social team. Now, this essentially is a team which has got everybody inside of it. So for small, medium-sized organizations, maybe say up to between 50 to 100 employees, quite often what you tend to find is that Teams is heavily used for social engagement. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we can do in Teams in a moment. But I'm just going to jump into an example here of a finance team. So this is our demo finance team. So imagine in Teams, usually you would have a team per department. So one for finance, one for IT, marketing, sales, and so on. Then within a team, you can have what they call channels, which are essentially, if imagine everybody who's in the finance department has access to the general channel area, you can then have multiple channels to almost categorize and silo the different conversations. So you could have a channel for invoices where all the conversations are going to be talking about invoices. We could have a channel for payroll where everything that's going on with payroll is talked about in there as well. You can also isolate it so only certain members of the department can have access to specific channels. So for example, if there was 10 people in the finance team, we might only allow, say, 2 of them to access the payroll area to have conversations and ask questions about payroll. Now, it's super easy to create a new conversation inside of a team. We can click on the Start a Post button here, and you can see we can add a subject line, some text, and we can also format it with different fonts and styles. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about kind of the general posting inside of Teams because we've done a lot of videos in the past before about the functionality of Teams, but it's just to give a bit of an idea of what you can do. Also, inside of a team, you can see across the top, these are not just quick links, they are also essentially embedding apps into Microsoft Teams. So for example, quite often with a team, you would also create a planner, which is essentially like almost like a Trello type board, Trello being sort of Microsoft's Planner's main competitor. You would then have this embedded, so Microsoft Planner embedded into your teams to sort of collaborate and work on tasks together. And you could break this down by grids or boards or schedules to kind of see what tasks have been assigned to you and the other team members. But of course, we could embed in all sorts of different apps, Power Apps or external things, Excel sheets like team rotors, and so much more across the top up here to make it easier for people to access what they're working on a day-to-day basis. We can also host meetings with our team, so we can either schedule a meeting or we could choose to meet right now, and that basically would take place inside of a conversational thread. So we could have, say for example, if there was a problem with a particular invoice, I could create a new thread for invoice 12345. There is a problem with this invoice. Click post, and then we could easily spin up a meeting directly inside of this particular conversational thread. The reason why we might do that is we could then record it, and then all of those notes and sort of meeting recordings are stored against that particular conversational thread. It makes it much easier then, say for example, if someone was off on annual leave and then they come back next week, we don't have to get them up to speed. They can just go and watch the recording of that particular meeting. So just to recap, Teams is really good for that kind of communication, but specifically on a collaborational kind of basis. It's really good for project management and working together and collaborating on things. And it's fantastic for meetings as well as webinars and things like that. Now, as I say, you can have a social element to Teams. So smaller or SMB type size organizations will often have a social element to their teams. So they'll have a social area where essentially it's just like where we've got this finance department, but it's the whole organization. And we can get it to be automatically adding every employee into it. And that's where we can post things about things that we're sort of up to, social events, football clubs, running clubs, things like that often get posted inside of that particular area. Again, we could create channels in there if we wanted to, if we want to break out those different social groups into their own areas. Although it's often used for smaller organizations in that way, I would recommend that especially if you're a larger organization and you're looking to have a much more streamlined, engaged, more social media feel to the communications which are going on in your organization, then it's time to look at Viva Engage. That brings me nicely on to talking about Viva Engage. So what is Viva Engage? Again, I could quickly break down the core areas of Viva Engage under three main headers. The first being employee engagement and communication platform. So Microsoft Viva Engage, well, it's formerly Yammer. So if you've ever used Yammer before, then Viva Engage is the direct replacement of Yammer. In fact, the functionality and the look and feel still very much resembles Yammer. And it's designed to foster employee engagement and build a connected company culture through open conversations, announcements, and community building within the organization. The focus here is on open. That's why it's very useful for enterprise level organizations which maybe don't have the same level of control over something like where we were looking at a social group in Teams. Usually in teams like that, it's only the kind of the organization will create those social areas and then people come to them. Whereas Viva Engage is much more of an open door policy where people can create their own, what we call communities, to bring people together. It's for social networking within the organization. It allows employees to participate in communities, share ideas, ask questions, and engage in discussions, making it ideal for amplifying knowledge sharing and cross-department collaboration. It's fantastic for bringing people together and kind of asking questions. The usability of it, I'm going to show you in a second, is really simple. I really love the look and feel. As well as that, it also provides seamless integration with Microsoft 365. So Viva Engage integrates into Microsoft Teams, as we saw a tab in there earlier on, and I'll show you that again in a moment, as well as Outlook and other Microsoft 365 apps, ensuring that engagement, updates, and company-wide communications are easily accessible within existing workflows. So let's jump in and take a look at Viva Engage. Now, there's a couple of ways of accessing this. As I say, you could do this from Microsoft Teams, but to avoid confusion, I'm going to be doing it through a web browser instead. Now, I'm not going to run through all the functionality of Viva Engage. If you want a bit more of a deep dive on this, I recently published a video onto the Valto channel, which is called What is Microsoft Viva Engage? Go check that out. This goes into a lot more detail. But a high-level summary view, you have a profile page. So unlike Teams where you don't have almost your own kind of profile, essentially, you have your own profile area here, which is known as a storyline. You can then post to that storyline and you can see everything that you have recently posted. You can't do this necessarily in Teams. Teams essentially groups its conversations in kind of linear order inside of individual teams. You can't just see everywhere that you've posted. Whereas with this, you can see all activity across everywhere that I've posted inside of recently. I can also see any joined communities on the right hand side, and I can either choose to share my thoughts, ideas or updates via discussions, questions, praise or polls. Again, for more information on those, go check out that What is Viva Engage video on our channel. Now, the difference between teams and communities, Viva Engage comes down to these communities. So communities are almost the same concept of a team where you've got a grouping of people coming together around a specific topic. Now, you do sometimes see them based around departments and teams and things like that, which gets a little bit confusing, but quite often communities are usually something which is outside of the departmental or business unit structure. They're typically things like social initiatives or things like I'm a member of a golf team. Now, inside the golf team community, you can see we can post here recent pictures and things like that. Now, this is really good and fantastic for essentially, especially when we're hybrid working or working from home, this is a great way of staying social and kind of seeing what our colleagues are up to. Also, it's a great way of kind of sharing interest and finding other people to network with internally who have the same kind of interests as well. Now, again, we can post in discussions, pictures, polls, questionnaires, things like that. And within inside of the community, we can change the banner image, we can change the display picture. We can also see who the members of that particular group are, a little bit of info like a bio about that community, as well as any pinned links or resources. As well as that, communities also create areas for document sharing. So just like in Microsoft Teams as well, we saw a Files tab in Microsoft Teams. We also have a Files tab inside of Community, so we can store and upload documents there as well if we wanted to, or access the SharePoint site. It also creates a OneNote for taking notes and a planner, again, similar to like what we saw in Teams, where you could put in tasks to assign to people. But obviously that's more for communities which maybe are working on like a project. Maybe you create a community for planning things like the Christmas party or something like that, and you want a planner to keep track of those tasks. Now, I should also mention inside of communities that there's this concept of official versus unofficial communities, where again, you don't really have that inside of Teams. Now, I think this is a fantastic feature. The reason being is you can see here things like where we've got all companies. This is all sort of comms going into here, or Viva adoption, or Copilot adoption, or our blog. These are all what we call official communities. It's a little bit like on X, or what used to be Twitter, or Instagram, where something's made official, it's got a little sort of tick next to it, which means that this is an official Valto a community. Now, the reason for that is essentially, especially in larger, more enterprise-sized companies, there could be thousands of different communities. And now, if you were to see something pop up, like it was saying, oh, there's going to be big redundancies or something like that, or there's going to be a really big kind of bonus at the end of this year or something like that, some kind of information which is going out to everybody. If that was coming from a official community, you could almost take that as kind of gospel. That's coming from the business, essentially. Whereas if that information popped up in, say, for example, the golf team community, it's not likely that's going to be official information that's coming from the top of the organization. So it's a good way of kind of letting people know whether this is official information which is being managed by the organization and being pushed out to everybody, or is it unofficial information. Now, just going to the functionality again of a particular community, I say we can post in discussions, we can post in questions and praise and polls. Now, actually, you can post all of these different types inside of Microsoft Teams as well. So that functionality is very, very similar. The main difference for me from the user interface is how simplistic it is. It's really cut down. There's not as many buttons or things to do or features or functionality, but that's not a bad thing, because in reality, we want to make it as simplistic as possible for people, especially when they're going to be managing it themselves. They're going to be the community leaders. They're going to be owning this functionality. We want to we want the user interface to be as simple as possible for people to use. If you're enjoying this video so far, please do subscribe to our channel. It really does help our channel grow and reach more users. You will also find plenty more useful materials on not only Viva Engage, but Power Apps, Copilot, SharePoint, and so much more Microsoft products on our channel. So please do subscribe and like this video. So now let's talk a little bit about comparisons. So talking a bit about comparisons, the main thing is with Teams, as we've seen so far, it's mostly work focused. There's a lot of functionality in there about sort of collaborating on documents and things like that together, whereas Viva Engage is not so good at that type of thing. In Teams, there's a lot more going on in the user interface, and we tend to find it takes people a lot longer to get up to speed using Teams because there's so many more elements and components to it. You've got the concept of channels and things like that, whereas in Viva Engage, it's a lot more simplistic. So we've got the difference between using a team, as I say, which got multi-level channels to it, tabs, things like that, versus Viva Engage, which is a lot more streamlined. There's not as much going on in here. We've just got one essential feed, and we can have some sort of quick links and things like that pinned in here if we wanted to, but that's it. It's nice and streamlined and sort of easy for people to learn quicker. When comparing things like integrations, Viva does integrate. So as we said before, you can access it through Microsoft Teams simply by clicking on the Viva Engage tab within Teams and then selecting, say, a community and jumping into this. It's exactly the same usability. Viva Engage also natively integrates into SharePoint. So we get a document library where we can store our files. As you can see here, I've uploaded an image. It also integrates into OneNote for storing our notes, as well as Planner for storing our tasks. Whereas Microsoft Teams has got a lot more integration options. Again, it's a little bit more complex, so it takes more time to get used to it. But if you are a more advanced user, then you could have things like, again, SharePoint. It integrates natively. You can store all of your files and things like that directly inside of SharePoint from Microsoft Teams. It's got Calendar, so you can integrate a group calendar. It's got Microsoft Planner and To-Do, so for storing tasks and things like that, we can store them within here. We can also integrate things like Power Apps or Power BI or Excel documents directly into our Teams as well. But you could also integrate third-party things which have got nothing to do with Microsoft. So if you've got a say invoice tool like Sage that's got an online portal, you can add your own tabs directly into Microsoft Teams. So there's loads of native integrations, and you can also add in your own custom URL links as a tab as well. When comparing licenses, Microsoft Teams is usually included with most of the licenses that you have. So if you already have Microsoft 365, you probably already have Microsoft Teams included. However, Microsoft Viva Engage is additional license. It comes at £1.64 per user per month, and you also get access to Viva Connections as well as Viva Amplify. So of course, this often lends itself more to enterprise companies which are using it specifically for the main benefits that we've already talked about. So just to round up then, when to use Viva versus Microsoft Teams. So using Microsoft Viva Engage, focusing on employee engagement, well-being, and continuous learning. You will need insights into your organization, productivity, and well-being. You can also use it for creating a learning-driven culture in the workplace. It's so simplistic to use, so simple for people to understand. It's really an effective tool to get people started quickly. However, using Microsoft Teams, you should use this when you need a communication and collaboration hub for teams and projects and working together, as well as that hosting virtual meetings, managing tasks and file sharing and key priorities. When you need to require a centralized platform for day-to-day work, that is essentially what you want to use Microsoft Teams for. Microsoft Viva Engage and Microsoft Teams serve different yet completely complementary purposes. Viva Engage enhances the employee's experience and well-being, while Microsoft Teams focuses mostly on collaboration and day-to-day work. Understanding the unique offerings of each product can help organizations maximize productivity and employee satisfaction. Valto are adoption specialists, so if you need any help in deploying and adopting either product, please contact us. There's a link in the description below, and we look forward to hearing from you today. Thank you.